You've seen the dragonfly 1,000 times and never really looked at it. It's that bright speck that darts across the air by the pond in summer, a blue or red flash that appears, hovers for a second, and vanishes. Most people think it's pretty, and that's about it. Harmless, decorative, an ornament nature placed upon the water. Well, get ready, because that fragile little thing is, without exaggeration, the most efficient hunter that has ever existed on the face of the earth. And it's not me saying it, the numbers say it. Let's do the math. A lion is victorious in 1 out of every 4 hunts, roughly 25%. The great white shark hovers around 50%. The eagle, even less. All those documentary predators, with their fangs and claws, fail more often than they succeed. The dragonfly, however, captures its prey in mid-flight with a precision that, according to some records, exceeds 90%. In certain measurements, it reaches 95%. Out of every 100 attempts, 95 end in a meal. No large animal even comes close to that figure. The planet's deadliest hunter is not a multi-ton beast. It weighs less than a paperclip. It fits in the palm of your hand. It lives by the nearest puddle, and it has been perfecting its technique for 300 million years. Today, we're going to see who the dragonfly really is, why it's such a perfect killing machine, how it spends half its life transformed into a monster underwater, and what would happen to your summer if they all disappeared tomorrow. Let's start at the beginning, because the dragonfly is much older than it looks. It belongs to an order called Odonata, one of the oldest groups of flying insects on the planet. Its ancestors appeared in the Carboniferous period over 300 million years ago. To give you an idea of what that means, dinosaurs appeared about 230 million years ago. Flowering plants, about 130 million years ago. When the dragonfly was already soaring through the air, there were no flowers, no grass, no birds, just ferns, horsetails, and swampy forests. It flew over a world you wouldn't recognize. And back then, it was different. In the Carboniferous, atmospheric oxygen reached 35%. Today, it's only 21%. This matters a great deal because insects don't breathe with lungs. They breathe through tiny tubes that run through their bodies, the tracheae. The more oxygen there is in the air, the larger an insect can grow without suffocating. The result? An extinct relative of the dragonfly called Meganeuropsis, with a wingspan of up to 70 centimeters, almost the length of an adult's arm. The largest flying insect that has ever existed. The first time I saw a reconstruction of that creature in a museum, I confess it made me uncomfortable. We're used to the dragonfly being that little bright speck by the water. 300 million years ago, it was something the size of a hawk crossing the sky. Then oxygen levels dropped. The giants disappeared, but the basic design survived. 4 wings, enormous eyes, grasping legs. The formula worked so well that evolution barely tweaked it. Today, some 6,500 species of dragonflies and their close relatives are known, spread across every continent except Antarctica, from the tropics to the subarctic. Wherever there is fresh water, there are dragonflies. The design was so good that it survived mass extinctions, ice ages, the fall of the dinosaurs. While entire biological empires were born and died, the dragonfly kept doing the same thing as always, hunting in the air better than anyone else. And here comes the truly interesting part. The dragonfly's entire body is a set of tools refined for a single task: killing in the air. Let's start with the eyes, because they're absolutely insane. The dragonfly has 2 enormous spheres that occupy almost its entire head. Each one is made up of between 25,000 and 30,000 tiny lenses. 30,000. Together, they give it a field of vision of nearly 360 degrees. The dragonfly sees up, down, forward, backward, and to the sides, all at the same time. Its only blind spot is a narrow strip right behind the neck. It's practically impossible to approach it without being seen. But the most impressive thing is where all that information goes. Around 80% of the dragonfly's brain is dedicated exclusively to processing what its eyes see. That left me thinking for a good while. It's not an insect with eyes. It is, almost literally, a pair of eyes with the minimum brain necessary to aim. A machine built entirely around vision. Let's move on to the wings, because that's where part of the secret lies. The dragonfly has 4, and here's the trick. Each one moves independently of the others. In most flying insects, the wings are coupled and beat together, like a single engine. In the dragonfly, each wing has its own set of muscles. This gives it a level of flight control that no other insect possesses. It can fly forward, backward, sideways, stop dead in the air, and turn 180 degrees instantly. Some studies have recorded speeds exceeding 50 kilometers per hour. And then there are the legs. All 6 are tilted forward, forming a kind of basket or trap under the body. The dragonfly barely walks. Its legs aren't for walking, they're for catching. When it attacks, those 6 legs close around the prey in a fraction of a second, forming a cage from which escape is nearly impossible. But now comes the most mind-blowing part of all, and it's the real reason the dragonfly succeeds 95% of the time. The dragonfly doesn't chase its prey, it intercepts it. Think about it. When a lion hunts, it runs after the zebra. The hawk dives onto the pigeon. That's chasing. You see where the prey is and you head toward that point. The dragonfly does something far more sophisticated. It doesn't fly toward where the mosquito is. It flies toward where the mosquito is going to be a fraction of a second later. It calculates its victim's trajectory and heads to the exact point where they will intersect before the prey even gets there. Researchers filmed these hunts with high-speed cameras and discovered something extraordinary. The dragonfly keeps the image of the prey fixed on the same point of its retina throughout the attack. As long as that image doesn't move, it means it's on a perfect collision course. This principle has a name: constant bearing, and it's exactly the same one used by the guidance systems of self-guided missiles. An insect with a brain of a few milligrams uses the same navigation logic as a guided missile. And there's more. The dragonfly usually attacks from below and behind, and adjusts its trajectory so that, from the prey's point of view, it appears as a stationary dot that doesn't move relative to the background. This is called motion camouflage. The mosquito doesn't detect that something is approaching, because visually the predator seems to be still. It doesn't understand what's happening until the legs close around it. By then, it's too late. When I first read about constant bearing, I had to reread it several times. It took us humans decades to formalize that principle into mathematical equations. The dragonfly executes it effortlessly, with a handful of neurons that would fit on a pinhead. But the brilliant flying adult is only half the story, because before becoming that aerial hunter, the dragonfly lived a completely different life. A life underwater, and that life is, frankly, even more unsettling. It all starts when the female lays her eggs in the water or on plants growing near it. From those eggs, a miniature dragonfly does not emerge. Something else emerges. The nymph emerges, also called a naiad, and the naiad looks nothing like the elegant creature of the air. Forget the bright colors and transparent wings. It's a flattened, dark creature, covered in sediment, crawling along the bottom of the pond or hiding among the algae. The first time you see one, you'd never guess it's going to become a dragonfly, and that naiad is one of the main predators of ponds and freshwater pools. It has a unique weapon among insects: the lower lip, what scientists call the labium. It's folded under the head like a loaded spring. When prey passes by, a mosquito larva, a tadpole, even a small fish, that labium shoots forward in milliseconds and grabs it with hooks on the end. The speed is such that the victim doesn't even have time to react. It's the exact underwater equivalent of what the adult dragonfly does in the air, an instantaneous capture with no margin for error, and the naiad doesn't hunt by chasing. It's an ambusher. It stays completely motionless for hours, camouflaged in the mud or among aquatic plant roots, waiting for something to move within range of its deadly labium. When it happens, the shot is so fast that often you can't even see it with the naked eye. You only see the result. The prey is already trapped between the hooks. And here's a detail that left me speechless. The naiad moves by jet propulsion. It draws water into a chamber inside its own body and then forcefully expels it backward, propelling itself forward like a rocket. A jet engine in a 2-centimeter insect larva. The same principle used by squid, but in fresh water and in miniature. The naiad lives like this, hunting underwater, from a few months up to 5 years, depending on the species. During all that time, it grows, molts its skin between 10 and 15 times, and becomes increasingly fearsome. Some naiads of large species even hunt fish larger than themselves. And then the moment arrives. The day it has waited for months or years underwater. The naiad climbs up a stem or a rock to emerge from the water, usually at night or dawn, when there are fewer predators lurking. It clings tightly, and its old shell cracks open along the back. From that crack, slowly, the adult dragonfly begins to emerge, wet, soft, with folded and wrinkled wings. It comes out of its old skin and hangs upside down, waiting. Then it pumps its blood, called hemolymph in insects, into the wing veins, and the wings unfold millimeter by millimeter, like an opening origami. Then they dry and harden in the air. This is one of the most vulnerable moments in any animal's life. For several hours, the newly emerged dragonfly cannot fly, flee, or defend itself. A bird, a frog, a spider, any of them could eat it in one bite. An enormous number of dragonflies die right here, at this threshold between water and air. Those that survive finally unfold their wings and take off. Transformed. The ancient creature of the mud has become the most precise hunter in the sky. Subscribe if you like the video, because what comes next connects this tiny insect directly to your health, your summer, and things you've been using without knowing it. The dragonfly is much more connected to humans than it seems, and almost everything revolves around one word: mosquitoes. Let's start there. A single adult dragonfly can eat hundreds of mosquitoes and flies per day. But it doesn't end there, because the naiads underwater devour the larvae of those same mosquitoes before they can take flight. In other words, the dragonfly attacks your enemy from above and below, in the air and in the water, at all stages of its life. It's one of the most effective natural controllers against biting insects, and this is no small detail. In tropical regions, where diseases like malaria and dengue are serious problems that kill many people, dragonflies are part of the natural balance that keeps disease-carrying mosquitoes in check. When wetlands are destroyed for farming or construction, dragonflies lose the water they need to breed. Their population drops, and the mosquito population soars. It's a chain that is almost never mentioned, but that epidemiologists know very well. But dragonflies serve us in an even more subtle way, as a thermometer of the planet's health. Many species are extremely sensitive to water pollution. Their naiads cannot tolerate living in dirty or poisoned water. That's why ecologists use them as living indicators. If a pond has a diverse and abundant community of dragonfly naiads, the water quality is good. If that community suddenly disappears, it's a sign that something is very wrong. It's an analysis that is faster, cheaper, and sometimes more reliable than many chemical lab tests. The dragonfly tells you, just by being there or not, how healthy the entire ecosystem is. Then there's engineering, which is where things get fascinating. What makes the dragonfly special is not just that it flies well, but how it flies. Each wing has a network of veins and microcorrugations that control airflow with a precision that aerodynamic engineers are still deciphering. On the leading edge of each wing, there's a small thickening called the pterostigma. It's not there by chance. It stabilizes the wing at high speeds and suppresses vibrations that could destabilize flight. It's basically a passive anti-vibration system built right into the insect's wing. Furthermore, the dragonfly can beat its front and hind wings at different frequencies and even in opposite directions. The front wing creates the airflow, the hind wing exploits it. When it needs maximum speed, it synchronizes them. When it needs to maneuver in a tiny space, it decouples them. It's like having two pairs of engines that can work together or separately as needed. Engineers who design micro-drones have been studying this structure for decades. One technology company even built a drone with 4 independent wings that replicates dragonfly flight. It can hover, fly in any direction, and spin on its axis. And even then, it doesn't come close to the perfection of the original. 300 million years of evolution and we are only just beginning to copy what the dragonfly solved an eternity ago. And if all that weren't enough, there's one last fact that's hard to believe. Some dragonflies are capable of doing something that sounds impossible for such a small insect: migrating across an ocean. There is one species, a small dragonfly with a wingspan of barely 8 centimeters, that undertakes one of the longest migrations known in the entire insect kingdom. The route goes from India, across the Indian Ocean, to eastern Africa, and then back. The total distance is estimated to be between 14,000 and 18,000 kilometers per complete cycle. But here's the amazing trick: no single dragonfly makes the entire journey. It's a multi-generational migration. The dragonflies fly, reproduce along the way, and die. Their offspring continue the route, taking advantage of monsoon winds and orienting themselves, probably by the polarization of sunlight. Scientists confirmed this by analyzing certain isotopes in the wings of dragonflies captured on islands in the middle of the ocean. Those dragonflies were not born there. They came from the mainland. An insect weighing a few hundred milligrams crossing an entire ocean, not in one trip, but across entire generations, following a route etched into a nervous system the size of a pinhead. When I first read this, it took me a while to accept that they were talking about a dragonfly and not a migratory bird. But, and here the story takes a turn, what would happen if all dragonflies suddenly disappeared tomorrow morning? At first, you probably wouldn't notice anything. You might miss those flashes of color over the water in summer, but the world would keep turning. The disaster, as almost always, would start from below, in silence. The first thing you'd notice, and not pleasantly, would be the mosquitoes. Without adult dragonflies hunting them in the air, and without naiads devouring their larvae in the water, mosquito populations would grow unchecked. Summers would become unbearable. And in regions where mosquitoes transmit serious diseases, that increase would translate sooner or later into more cases of malaria and dengue. One fewer hunter means one more disease carrier, multiplying with no one to stop it. Then would come the effect on the water itself. Dragonflies are part of the balance of ponds, rivers, and wetlands. Naiads control populations of other small aquatic animals. If they disappear, that balance breaks, and the effects move up the food chain. Because a huge number of animals eat dragonflies: birds, frogs, fish, spiders. For all of them, a dragonfly is a nutritious and abundant meal. Without them, those predators would have to find food elsewhere, and some wouldn't find it. It wouldn't be an overnight apocalypse. It would be a slow, silent shift, a crack that widens season after season. What biologists call a cascading effect. You remove a piece that seemed unimportant, a bright speck by the water, and suddenly you discover it was supporting much more than you thought. The dragonfly is that unassuming brick in the building's foundation. No one looks at it, but remove it and see what crumbles. And before ending, we have to talk about something that makes the dragonfly unique: the curious place it holds in human culture. Because, unlike the fly or the mosquito, we have looked at the dragonfly with respect and even fear for centuries. In Japan, the dragonfly was long a symbol of courage and military victory. In fact, one of the ancient names for Japan itself meant something like Island of the Dragonflies. Samurai engraved them on their armor and helmets because they saw in them a symbol of unstoppable advance. The dragonfly always flies forward, never retreats in flight, and that made it an emblem of the warrior who never takes a step back. In Europe, on the other hand, the relationship was exactly the opposite. For centuries, the dragonfly was associated with witches, the devil, and evil. In some places, it was given fearsome names, like Devil's Darning Needle, and legend said it sewed shut the eyelids, lips, or ears of misbehaving children while they slept. The same animal, exactly the same, was an emblem of valor in one culture and a creature of hell in another. And all of it largely from pure ignorance of what the dragonfly actually did. Think about it for a moment. the same insect that spends years turned into a monster of the mud that shoots its lip like a harpoon, that kills 95% of the time it attacks, that navigates like a guided missile and crosses entire oceans over generations, is also that delicate little speck you watched pass over a pond in summer without paying it the slightest attention. There are few creatures that embody so many extremes at once, and perhaps that is the real lesson. The dragonfly teaches us that appearances deceive, that behind something small and seemingly fragile can hide the most perfect hunting machine evolution has produced in 300 million years, that the pretty flash by the water is, in its world, the most lethal and efficient predator there is, compared to which the lion and the shark are mere amateurs. The next time you see a dragonfly hover by a puddle, don't just think it's pretty. You're looking at a pair of giant eyes with 30,000 lenses connected to 4 wings that move independently, to legs folded into a trap, and to a tiny brain that doesn't chase but calculates interceptions with the logic of a missile. An animal that was born at the bottom of a pond and completely rebuilt itself to conquer the air. An insect that was here long before the dinosaurs, that survived everything that tried to wipe it off the map, that keeps at bay the armies of mosquitoes that make us sick, and that, in all likelihood, will still be here long after we're gone. Subscribe if you like the video. Every week we delve into the world of those small beings that almost no one looks at twice, but that hold everything up. See you in the next one.